Please, sir, may I have some more? We all recognize this infamous line from Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. But why? The words were spoken by a young child, and it invokes an image in our minds of a young boy, filthy, in tattered clothes, begging for food. Charles Dickens is one of the most illuminating authors of the Victorian age. His novels often showed themes of how aware he was of the mischief and inequality of his society and the surroundings. He often depicted the unjust society using children, and despite their miserable conditions, they often found a happy ending. Dickens succeeded in altering public opinion of the circumstances facing the destitute and underprivileged. His vivid descriptions of the disorder, filth, decay, and human misery in a Victorian industrial city brought these lives into sharper focus. Although the scholarly debate of the conditions of the time changes into an emotional, ethical allegory on later pages, Oliver Twist is an important manifestation of Victorian social conscience. Prior to the Industrial Revolution and the capitalization of society, wealth was often most respected if one's family had what was called old money. London slums arose initially because of rapid population growth and industrialization. They became notorious for overcrowding, unsanitary, and squalid living conditions. Dickens explores many social themes in Oliver Twist, but three are predominant: the abuses of the poor law system, the evils of the criminal world in London, and the victimization of children. Oliver Twist can be read as a textbook of Victorian child abuse and a social document about early Victorian slum life. When Oliver goes with Sowerby to collect the body of a dead woman who died of starvation, he can see the appalling view of derelict slum houses. Even when a child was fortunate enough to get an education, they often fared little better. The theme of child abuse in the perspective of the Victorian education system is continued in Nicholas Nickleby. The novel contains a significant social commentary on the environment of schools where unwanted children were abused and starved. The social consequences of the industrialization and development are feasibly most convincingly portrayed in Hard Times, which was written in 1854, which Dickens wrote at the urging of certain external conditions of his life and surroundings at the time. Hard Times portrayed a harsher view of the world he saw than his previous novels. The nature of the conditions during the early part of the Industrial Revolution widened the gap between rich and poor. Given the vast scope of the Victorian working class, which was roughly 80% of the population at the time, the middle class lost ground as they competed with the abundance of poor labor and the fact that the wages of many semi-skilled and unskilled male workers were so low that they could not support a family unless supplemented by their wives and children. These economic and social conditions also serve to stifle opportunities of upward mobility. It cannot be doubted that a high proportion of Victorian women engaged regularly in paid work. This created an additional burden for families trying to improve their circumstances. Dickens, as a social commentator, created and exerted a profound influence on later novelists committed to social analysis. Some of his concerns with the question of the condition of England were further dealt with in the novels of Charles Kingsley, George Eliot, George Gossing, George Orwell, and later in postmodern novels by Martin Amis and Zadie Smith. Dickens' stories showed the effects of the Industrial Revolution and rapid population growth not only on the economic challenges and limitations of the average worker, but also the trickle-down effect that it had on their wives and children. His internal optimism led him to write his stories with happy endings that gave the reader hope for the future. Oliver Twist, even with his trials and tribulations, his story ended with happiness. It ended with a family's security and friendship. My heart is full.